Hey guys, welcome back. So now getting back into the year of the villain, and also getting into more talk about Nightwing, so it's likely this video will make it to both playlists. But at this point in time where we talked about the crazy transition that had taken place after Nightwing was shot by KG Beast, which had caused him to lose much of his memories, but now it's come to the point where we're seeing that this could either be an opportunity for him to get a fresh start, or this could be an opportunity for someone else to draw him into their cause. So now let's get into it, but first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch us spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so now at this point with Richard Grayson, who's now going by Rick, as in Rick Grayson instead of Dick Grayson, which in some ways symbolizes this new beginning, because after all, Rick is still short for Richard, so essentially he's keeping the same name, but this time around he's doing things different. And because after being shot by KG Beast, the only things that he really remembers are like his childhood and like his short-term memory from like waking up in the hospital and just walking out. And of course, before he left, he did do therapy for a short while, but as soon as he was strong enough, he left and did his own strength training on his own. But one of the dangerous things about Rick Grayson and this new path that he's branching off into is the fact that within the memories that he has now, we've come to find out that he's missing a lot of the years as Robin and his Nightwing. And sure, a few moments have come back to him within dreams, or he may have certain visions while he's having a migraine, which are likely symptoms of his brain still healing itself. But with him being in this crossroads of life choices, this is something that could play out two completely different ways. Because on one hand, you have where it's super liberating, which is kind of what we're seeing with him meeting these new friends, and most notably B, which I'm sure is short for Beatrice, which I was calling her Bea for a little bit, but if it's short for Beatrice, I'm sure it's just B, spelled B-E-A. But with B, he's found a new love interest along this new path, which is something that's super tough for Barbs to deal with, but you can tell she ain't letting go. Because it's one of those things where you can't force him to remember, or you can't force him to feel, you just gotta let him go, and if he comes back, that's something that just has to happen naturally. But in addition to B, like we talked about on the Nightwing playlist, you also have your team Nightwing. And I got a link below if you need to catch up more on how that came together, but in a nutshell, you had like your Bloodhaven detectives and firefighter who found the old suits of Nightwing and used them to pick up the mantle and continue his work. But while doing this, they nearly got killed a lot. And with Rick Grayson, who at this point, he's often compelled to jump in and help people, and mainly from so many years of being a hero and all of his muscle memory from doing flips before he could walk, this gradually transformed from him saving them from trying to be Nightwing to a place of him actually training them to lower their chances of getting killed out there, and even from time to time him joining them, but not under the title as Nightwing, but really just as this unnamed hero, this unnamed help who would either assist them when they needed help, or he would just go into action when he sees something need to be done. And when Team Nightwing sees him go into action, then not too long after that, they're not far behind. And so all of these things really set the stage for where Dick Grayson is at, or Rick Grayson, towards the beginning of Year of the Villain. And this is what sets up the other side of that possibility which I was talking about, to where on one hand it could be liberating, but on the other hand you also have that risk of him not having the knowledge of those things that he's learned throughout the entire time of him being Robin and throughout the entire time of him being Nightwing. And sure, pieces of that are still there, and the muscle memory's holding it down as far as the moves and the fighting skills, but as far as lacking those years of memories and experience, it leaves him a lot of room to be naive and ultimately susceptible to influence. And so now when we begin to see the potential of this threat take hold, it happens on a night when he's helping out Malcolm Hutch, who's a member of Team Nightwing who's also a firefighter. But Rick Grayson more or less helped him stop this cyclist who stole a kidney from the hospital, or better yet was in transit to the hospital, which isn't necessarily the most important detail, but what is important is that Rick Grayson was being watched. And so now not long after this, we come to the point to where Grayson, he's made the decision that he's going to tell B what he's been doing as far as being a hero by night, but also what he's learned about his past to this point with him formerly being Robin and also Nightwing. And when he tells her, she takes it pretty well, because prior to this point, he's always run towards danger instead of running from it. And any opportunity he's had to either save someone or protect her, he was shockingly good at it. So when he told B, it really wasn't a stretch. But with her also actually hearing it from him, she was a little bit starstruck about the fact that she's actually dating the boy Wonder, but ultimately her main concern is when he told her about him being shot and having amnesia, like those made her fear that this was a temporary situation, and that likely his memories would come back, and because of that he would just move on without her. But rather he assures her that this new life is not temporary and that he's not going back to what he was before. And of course, this conversation as well is being watched. And if you think about it, this is like the perfect conversation. Like there's so much useful information within this conversation. And for the person who's watching, this is exactly what he wanted to hear. And so as far as Malcolm Hutch, who had returned the kidney to the hospital, he was also followed by a surveillance drone, to where we find out here that Zach, one of the younger members of Team Nightwing, he's the one who's in the hospital, along with his older sister, Detective Sapienza, who are met here by Malcolm, so it's pretty much the whole Team Nightwing, who, to make matters worse, they're having a conversation about Rick, to whom prior to this point they didn't know that he was Nightwing. And even though Sapienza has his reasons to believe that Rick Grayson was Nightwing, but throughout this conversation, the argument comes up that what if this guy wasn't a former hero, but he was actually a villain? Because at this point, they really don't know for sure, which of course for Rick Grayson was by choice. And so now not long after this, we come to find out that it was actually Talon, who is William Cobb, who is the great-grandfather of Richard Grayson. But we come to find out that he's been tracking down his great-grandson this whole time, and more or less doing reconnaissance so he can find a way to bring his grandson into the Court of Owls. But immediately after we see this, we also find out that Talon is approached by Lex Luthor. And it's here where Luthor's offer to Talon comes in, because prior to this point, with everything that we've been talking about on the Justice League playlist, with the transformation of Lex Luthor, the origin of Perpetua, the Sixth Dimension, Lex Luthor taking the advice of the Batman Who Laughs, like all of this led up to the Year of the Villain, which initially kicked off with Lex Luthor sending out his offers to a number of individuals. And so now what Luthor offers here for Talon is actually what he says is additional information which will help Talon bring in his great-grandson Rick Grayson. And the way that this is set up, it starts to make so many of these Rick Grayson things just make sense, because Luthor goes on to tell Talon that because of the injury that Rick Grayson sustained, he's no longer under the influence of Batman. And though Talon has his suspicions about this even being Lex Luthor, because once again the world believes that he's dead, and before Lex died he didn't look like this, so for that reason Talon has his reasonable suspicions. But with Lex giving Talon the whole sway the universe towards doom speech, he also lets Talon know that the information that Talon has is insufficient to win Rick Grayson over to his side. And it's because of this Luthor tells Talon that if he agrees to work towards his purpose, then he'll literally just hand Rick Grayson over to him, which for Talon it's an offer where he has nothing to lose but everything to gain. And so now from here we continue to see Talon do his research, and when he discovers that Rick Grayson is a taxi driver by day, he literally just gets him some regular clothes and he calls a taxi. And in this conversation with Rick Grayson, Talon is super transparent. Like when Rick asks him what's his name, he's like, oh yeah, William Cobb. What are you doing in town? Oh, historical research. Oh, okay, where you from, William Cobb? Gotham. And it's like he's telling him the truth, but he's not being too on the nose. And even though he's not being on the nose, he's real close to it, and he's more or less strolling along the cheekbone. But even with doing so, he does very much acknowledge that this Rick Grayson, who's like a blank slate, that now is a better time than ever to bring him in. Because as far as history-wise, William Cobb, who's the father of the Gray Son of Gotham, which is where the name Grayson came from, but the Gray Son of Gotham would then have a child who would be John Grayson, who is the father of Dick Grayson. But with everything that's going on now with the new Rick Grayson, there is no better opportunity than the present for Talon to have that chance to deliver to the Court of Owls their most coveted prospect. But so now later on this night, while Team Nightwing is on patrol, and I gotta tell you, like, this part got me real excited, probably too excited. But while Team Nightwing was on patrol, the youngest member, Zach, gets stabbed in the back, and he's stabbed in the back by none other than Talon. And when I seen this, I was like, oh yeah, here we go, because personally I'm not too crazy about Team Nightwing, and for obvious reasons neither is Talon. So when Talon stabs him in the back, I felt like, man, Talon, he's doing this for the readers. But also on top of this, like, the reaction of Zach when Talon arrives and tells him that he's a fraud, and he responds like, no, I'm Nightwing and I'm gonna prove it. And man, like, listen, listen, like this, no, bruh. Because for one, and you guys know how serious Talon is, because when Zach throws his first kick, he catches another Talon, and immediately Zach is like, forget this, man, get the strap. Like, how am I getting stabbed and sliced in the middle of every attempt to defend myself? And it's like, man, this young man did not have a chance. And it's like, sure, you can put on a jersey and think you're Michael Jordan, you can practice his moves in the mirror, but in no way does this mean that you are ready for the Detroit Pistons. And I'm talking about your late 80s, early 90s Detroit Pistons, like the Isaiah Thomas, Dennis Rodman Goon Squad. And this is the moment where Zach should have known that he messed up. And in my opinion, this has been the problem with Team Nightwing as a whole, because when they hear Zach getting his butt kicked from blocks away, of course they go run to help him. But with the whole notion of these guys trying to take on the mantle of Nightwing, it's like they really truly have no idea how big these shoes are that they're trying to fill. And I'm sure they've seen highlights from the news cameras with Nightwing jumping from rooftops, but even still, that has a lot to do with the man doing triple flips while his age was in single digits. But when they finally catch up with Zach, they finally get a good look at what a real threat is capable of, because as of this point, the 5 most dangerous people that Team Nightwing has faced are Talon, bro. Like, that's it. And I'm telling you, like, man, like, this dude had the chance of like a preschooler passing the SATs. Like, forget the universe heading towards doom, like Zach already there. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Definitely got more Year of the Villain coming soon, more Nightwing Year of the Villain coming soon. And once again, if you need to get a bit more caught up, I got links below for the Justice League playlist, the Nightwing playlist, and the Year of the Villain playlist. Because I gotta say, with everything that's been going on with Nightwing up to this point, and much of the story that's taken place during his time as Rick Grayson, it really feels like like they've just been reserving him for something later that is just gonna blow our minds when we eventually see what it's come to. And I'm gonna tell you right now, it better. And I believe I'm speaking for all the loyal, faithful Nightwing fans who have been holding on and just hanging in there just to see where this pans out. And to be honest, like, I wouldn't mind if he joined the Court of Owls for a little while. But as this pans out, we'll see how it goes. But for now, let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comments, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.